Have you ever been treated like you were invisible? Or worse, like you were less than? What if I told you the way we see others isn't just about perception? It's about philosophy, power, ego, identity, and the illusions we all wear. Today's story isn't just about a man and a badge. It's about the ideas that define who we think we are, and what happens when those ideas are challenged. Let me tell you about Marcus Wynn and the day a simple traffic stop turned into a confrontation with the very foundations of pride, justice, and self-deception. It was 6:18 p.m. in Phoenix, Arizona. The desert sun was starting its descent, painting the city in layers of copper and ash. Marcus Wynn, 51, was driving home after a long day of lectures. He wasn't a professor, not officially, but he'd spent the past decade traveling the country, giving talks on ethics, philosophy, and law enforcement accountability. Marcus believed in dialogue, in reason, in Socratic questions over easy answers. But none of that mattered when the red and blue lights lit up behind him. He pulled over, hands already resting on the steering wheel, not because he was guilty, but because he knew how this worked. He always did. Out of the patrol car stepped Officer Hale, early 30s, tall, broad-shouldered, sunglasses still on, despite the fading light. The kind of man who walked like the road owed him something. "License and registration," Hale said flatly, not a greeting in sight. Marcus handed them over, his movements slow, respectful. Hale squinted at the ID. "You live in this neighborhood?" "I do," Marcus replied calmly. But the way Hale said, "this neighborhood," it wasn't a question. It was a judgment. What unfolded next wasn't a dramatic takedown, no yelling, no accusations, just pressure, subtle, persistent, invasive. The questions began to curve, bend into suspicion. Where are you headed? Why are you dressed like that? You drive this car often? Every question was a probe, not for truth, but for weakness. What Officer Hale didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Marcus had been studying these interactions his entire life. He'd spent years examining Foucault's theory of power, how authority isn't just enforced with violence, but with language, posture, suggestion. Marcus wasn't just being interrogated, he was witnessing a performance. And Hale was trying to be the main character in a play called Control. And that's when Hale said it. "I need you to step out of the vehicle, just routine." Marcus smiled faintly. "Is it routine?" he asked. "Or is it ritual?" Hale blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" Marcus stepped out of the car slowly, deliberately. "It means," he said, "this isn't about a stop sign. It's about the story you're telling yourself." Hale squared up, his hand resting near his holster. "You trying to be a smart-ass?" "No," Marcus replied. "I'm trying to understand. Are you playing the role of an officer, or have you become it?" That line froze Hale, just for a moment. You see, this is where philosophy shows its teeth. Marcus wasn't trying to provoke. He was trying to reveal. Plato taught that most people live in a cave, mistaking shadows for truth. And in this moment, Marcus was holding up a mirror to the shadow Hale had become. But ego doesn't like mirrors. Hale barked, "Turn around." Hands on the hood. Marcus did. No resistance, no sarcasm, just silence. As Hale patted him down, looking for a threat that wasn't there, Marcus asked one final question. "If I wore your uniform, would I be you?" The search came up empty. Hale was growing frustrated. "You think you know everything, huh?" he muttered. "No," Marcus said softly, "but I know enough to know what happens next." He turned to face the officer, slowly reaching into his jacket. Hale's hand flew to his weapon, but Marcus raised a calming hand. "I'm just reaching for my credentials, no surprises." And then he pulled it out, a leather badge case. Federal investigator, Department of Justice, Civilian Oversight Division. Marcus met Hale's eyes. I oversee officer conduct, internal bias reviews, systemic reform policies. Hale's face drained of color. Wait, you're with internal affairs? Marcus shook his head. Number, I'm above that. I don't investigate individual misconduct. I investigate the systems that produce it. Hale stepped back, eyes wide, posture unsteady. He had been trying to assert power over someone who had been quietly holding a mirror the whole time. But Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice. He asked, "What is justice, Officer Hale?" No response. Justice, Marcus continued, isn't when you feel powerful. It's when those without power still feel safe. He returned to his car door, hand resting on the handle. "Don't remember my name," Marcus said. "Remember the question." As Marcus drove off, the radio still murmuring in the background, he thought of Socrates, how he had been condemned for asking too many questions, and how, centuries later, those questions still mattered. He knew Officer Hale wouldn't forget that encounter, but more importantly, he hoped Hale would start asking the one question philosophy never lets us escape. Who am I when no one's watching? And that, friends, is what we must all ask. Because the uniform, the title, the role, it doesn't define you. Your choices do. So the next time you're in a moment of power, big or small, ask yourself, am I enforcing rules or embodying justice? Because that's not just philosophy. That's who we become. If this story made you pause, even for a second, share it with someone. Because truth doesn't spread through lectures, it spreads through moments of clarity. Like, subscribe and stay curious. We'll see you next time, right here, where questions matter more than answers.